proposed code. I know I have a really hard time understanding with just somebody talking at me. So as they're referencing parts of the code, we have these documents, and we'll have on the screen as well. And it has the current code here on the left-hand side and the proposed code on the right.
If anybody would like one,
And we can pass those out. And so my notes on this, I want to say, is where the headers were the same, I matched them, but otherwise they're matched simply by code number, because there was no other way really. And this does not include the 40-page standards document that's referenced in here. That is also part of that. All right. And I want to mention that BDNA agrees wholeheartedly with the equity and inclusion ideals of the proposed code. What we're opposed to is the current language as written. And if you're interested in our official letter, we do have a copy of it out on the table. It's also up on our website. And at our last meeting, we voted to endorse the letter from Rose City Park Neighborhood Association, which will also be up on our website. That one might not be up there yet. I am doing a lot of things. So I think that if we are lucky, you guys do not have to listen to me much longer, and we can turn it over to the Office of Community and Civic Life. And we've got Sabrina, Winta, and Civic. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Technology.
Okay, so my name is Sabrina Wilson. I work for the Office of Community and Civic Life. And what I'm going to do for you all today is kind of walk through and give you all a presentation of the code change. There might be some folks who are very familiar with what's going on, or some folks who are newer to knowing what's going on. And so I figured, we'll just go over it. Oh, we'll all be on the same page. Thank you. If I can get it.
Oh, check it.
Okay.
I'll play with the vacuum.
Okay. So the first slide was just going to be our program timelines within the Office of Community and Civic Life. This is really showing the wide range of programs that we have within the Bureau. So these programs range from mental health, disability, cannabis, livability, which include graffiti and liquor licensing.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, so small writing, but just to show that we have a large array of programs within the Bureau. A few documents that were getting us to code. So aside from us starting back in July of 2018, we have Vision PDX and Community Connect talking about civic engagement, and also the 2016 audit of then the Office of Neighborhood Involvement, and now the Office of Community and Civic Life. So about city codes, so just to start off, talking a little bit about Title III. So every bureau within the city has a Title III section in code, which is an administrative section in code, talking about the duties and functions of that bureau. Again, talking a little bit about why we're going on this process is that through the various reports that I referenced, it showed that our current code was outdated and does not reflect Civic Life's current programs, the few that I listed, their responsibilities, and their constituencies. And I don't expect anybody to be able to read this, but it's just a couple examples of other bureaus' versions of Title III code and kind of what that language is like. So for example, develops, modifies, evaluates, and updates city policy in accordance with planning priorities. That's the type of language that you'll find in the Portland Housing Bureau or in the city budget office coordinate the development and administration of the city's budget, et cetera, et cetera. So just to give you a little bit of an example. So what is the proposed code supposed to be doing? The proposed code should be naming all Portlanders as the constituency of civic life, recognizing the many ways that people come and they form together, including affinity, community, and through their neighborhoods. What it also does is it directs civic life to administer programs and policies. It acknowledges the origins of our democracy, which you'll find in the code, such as colonialism, and we'll go through that a little bit later. And it talks about the outcomes that should happen from its programs. What it also does is preserves the current benefits that currently exist for listed groups, such as neighborhood associations and coalitions. And I'll go more in depth about that in a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back a little bit just to talk about the process of getting us to today. And then also we're going to go through what's next, so what to expect at City Council. So you'll see an ordinance, and what that is just kind of some background information. It talks about a couple of the resolutions, and I'll go through that, as well as the recommended changes. We'll talk about 060 and what is called an administrative rule that goes along with that, and that goes to that piece of ensuring that currently listed and named groups continue to have those benefits and those relationships with other bureaus such as land use notification, about the process, and then a resolution on the next steps, and we'll go through that. So first what we're going to do is start with the committee. So council directed the Office of Community and Civic Life to form a committee to recommend changes to this code. And as you'll see, this is the committee, really with the goal of representing a cross-section of Portlanders. So this committee is not only diverse racially and ethnically, but also in age. You have youth, you have elders, also in varying levels of abilities and various ways that they engage with the city of Portland and engage with their constituency, whether it's through faith-based, whether it's through neighborhood or coalitions, whether it's through businesses or other nonprofit organizations. What we first did was a survey of civic life, and we ended up having a total of 1,014 responses. This survey was available in 5 languages: English, Spanish, Somali, Russian, and Vietnamese. And this survey talked about, what is civic engagement to you? And what do all communities need versus what are some things that are unique to these communities, to your community in particular? And we started with the survey out to our current networks. And so what we did was we quickly saw some of the gaps within our networks and gaps within who Civic Life currently had in their networks. And so what we did was we weekly checked who was answering this. And for example, one of the things we saw was that over 40% of respondents either had an undergraduate or graduate degree versus about half that for the Portland average. And so what we did was we partnered with other city bureaus, we partnered with community organizations and other groups to really try to, again, really how do we get that cross-section of Portlanders and reaching out to more Portlanders to get some respondents for the survey.
So, and I'm just going to correct you just with that. You said 40% and half that had college degrees, and the population is actually, we saw in our profile, almost 80%, and it's 40% of the general population. So we're just...
And then here are some of the images that were submitted when we talked about what is civic engagement to you, recognizing that some people, can write out a response, and other people like to submit art and imagery to better reflect the civic engagement that they do. And here are some more images there. So a survey is good for some things, right? It's good for some people who are on the go or who want to have some time to spend more time writing a more lengthy response. But we also have to recognize that Civic Life should be providing many platforms for Portlanders to author their own experiences. And so we held community conversations, and we also went to existing gatherings to have conversation with folks. What is civic engagement to you? How do you connect and interact with the city government? And how do you define your community? Were the kind of broad areas that we started these conversations off with. So when we look at our multilingual community conversation,